So, right off the bat, what's wrong with, in your opinion, with believing in a God, regardless of who the God is?
I think it's false. I think that it's a matter of belief without evidence, and as a scientist and as an educator, I like the idea that we believe things because there's evidence. There's such a lot of evidence available now at the beginning of the 21st century that it's a real shame, it's a tragedy to base your life upon something for which there is no evidence and never was any evidence, when the real truth is so wonderful.
Well, I think as you've begun to hear, there are two very different kinds of conversations we could have here. We can talk about religion as it is, for most people most of the time, and we can talk about what religion could be, or should be, or perhaps what it is for the tiniest minority of people. And I just want you to be aware of the difference there, because it could get lost. It's true that some people define God as pure consciousness, or as being synonymous with the laws of nature. But if we talk about consciousness and the laws of nature, we won't be talking about the God that most of our neighbors believe in, which is a personal God who hears our prayers and occasionally answers them. So I just want you to be sensitive to this, because if Michael or I say something derogatory about Islam or Christianity, which seems possible, the response from the other side shouldn't mention quantum mechanics. And it shouldn't reference a notion of God that is so denuded of doctrine as to more or less be synonymous with pure mystery or pure information or pure energy or pure anything. So I wanted to plant a flag there where you all can see it, because the God that our neighbors believe in is essentially an invisible person. It's a creator deity.
Why are you not a Christian?
Because I see no evidence whatever for any of the Christian dogmas. I've examined all the stock arguments in favor of the existence of God, and none of them seem to me to be logically valid.
Do you think there's a practical reason for having a religious belief for many people?
Well, there can't be a practical reason for believing what isn't true. That's quite, at least I rule it out as impossible. Either the thing is true or it isn't. If it is true, you should believe it, and if it isn't, you shouldn't. And if you can't find out whether it's true or whether it isn't, you should suspend judgment. But you can't, it seems to me, a fundamental dishonesty and a fundamental treachery to intellectual integrity to hold a belief because you think it's useful and not because you think it's true.
Well, I was thinking of those people who find that some kind of religious code helps them to live their lives. It gives them a very strict set of rules, the rights and the wrongs.
Yes, but you know, those rules are generally quite mistaken. A great many of them do more harm than good. And they would probably be able to find a rational morality that they could live by if they dropped this irrational, traditional, taboo morality that comes down from savage ages.
What is your proof that if there is a God, that he would leave you empirical proof of his existence?
But what would be sufficient? What would be sufficient proof?
Okay, there's two questions here. What would be sufficient proof is an excellent answer to both questions. My question to you, to answer your first question, is, would you be sure there is no Santa Claus? Are you sure there's no Zeus? Are you sure
there is no
and this is a question, it's rhetorical.
What I'm saying is that there is no historical evidence for Santa Claus or for Zeus. If you want to believe in Santa Claus, that's another issue.
A lot of people believe in Santa
Claus,
and a lot of people fought and died and sang songs for Zeus.
That's a very different kind of
I totally disagree. And to answer your question, in order for me to believe, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. What would it take for you to believe in Zeus? What would it take for you to change your ideas of the universe and believe in Thor? And believe in
But you don't believe in any of those, do you?
That's correct. But he asked me what it would take me to believe in God.
But you're equating those elements with a god, God, and I don't think that's the same thing.
I'm equating religion and mythology. They are synonymous. They are the same thing.
Well, but in your opinion.
No, they are the same thing, and I am open to hear the difference.
By what do you judge it? That's the thing, is
Give
that
me an idea.
You're setting your own criteria and then judging everything against that criteria.
If you go back in time and you talk to a Greek mythologist, somebody who believes in Zeus, who sacrifices goats to the gods, he's going to tell you, first of all, that he's not a believer in a mythology. He's a believer of a real bona fide religion. He's absolutely sure Zeus exists. He's got a personal relationship with Zeus. He's talked to Zeus.
Yes. Never in the...
Okay.
Please.
We are going to take... Hold those
synonyms.
thoughts. I want everybody to be quiet.
But here are some tips that I've learned over the years on how to sort of run events that walk that fine line. So first, don't be paralyzed by kindness, because you will always offend someone. Just to illustrate this, yes, this is my one lolcat for the talk. It's a rule. This was a sign that's been going up across the country saying, "Don't believe in God, you're not alone." And people got really upset about these signs. All they're saying is that we exist, atheists exist, and if you're an atheist, that's cool, come talk to us. And I know one of these even went up in Indiana, and man, if you read the comments for those news articles, they were really angry. They were like, how dare those atheists try to convert all of us and like put this on our buses where our children can see it. So, yeah, I know, fluffy clouds, it's really offensive. So you're always going to have people that no matter what you do, you can say you love kittens and they'll be offended by it. So don't get so upset about when someone's offended that you don't say anything at all, because speaking out is really important.
The idea of would you accept a God, what would it take for you to believe in God, it ultimately depends on how they're defining the God. So yeah, I need to know what it is the claim is before I can say what it would take to demonstrate that claim.
Yeah, the idea that God is nature.
I've had people tell me God is energy. Pantheists say that God is the universe. Yeah, God is love. Ultimately, though, when you start looking at what energy is, and you say, okay, is this what you're asserting your God is? You're going to get back no. So they'll define it and say it's, my God is energy, and then you say, okay, well, this is what energy is. Is this what you're saying your God is? And they respond and say no. So now I'm back to square one where I don't know what their God is. They're calling it energy, but when I tell them this is what I understand energy to be, they're saying that's not what my God is. So then I'm back to...
It's a different God.
It's a different energy.
See, there's baggage in the word. It drives me crazy. It's one of the reasons why I hate the word spiritual and spirituality, because they're completely freaking useless labels. But the label that God that gets bandied about, people are like, oh, no, God is nature, God is love, God is energy, or God is all of us, or some consciousness. Yet, no. The word carries some baggage with it because of its historical use. It would be wrong for me to say, this coffee cup is God. It doesn't have any of the identifiable characteristics of any of the classical definitions of God where we get the baggage from. And the biggest one is, this exists. I mean, there's one big difference for you right there. But it's dishonest, disingenuous of people to try to argue God as something else. Hey, if God is energy and that's all, just use the word energy.
Okay.
You don't get to add the word God and then ignore the baggage when it's convenient, and yet use the baggage when it's convenient.
And I read the Bible cover to cover, and I think that anyone who is thinking about maybe being an atheist, if you read the Bible or the Quran or the Torah cover to cover, I believe you will emerge from that as an atheist. I mean, you can read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. You can read God Is Not Great by Hitchens. But the Bible itself will turn you atheist faster than anything. I think because what we get told about the Bible is a lot of picking and choosing. When you see Lot's daughter gang raped and beaten, and the Lord being okay with that. When you actually read about Abraham being willing to kill his son, when you actually read that, when you read the insanity of the talking snake, when you read the hostility towards homosexuals, towards women, the celebration of slavery, when you read in context that thou shalt not kill means only in your own tribe. I mean, there's no hint that it means humanity in general, that there's no sense of a shared humanity. It's all tribal. When you see a God that is jealous and insecure, when you see that there's contradictions that show that it was clearly written hundreds of years after the supposed fact and full of contradictions, I think that anybody, you know, it's like reading the Constitution of the United States of America. It's in English. You know, you don't need someone to hold your hand. Just pick it up and read it. Just read what the First Amendment says, and then read what the Bible says. Going back to the source material is always the best. When someone's trying to interpret something for you, they always have an agenda. So I read the Bible, and then I read, you know, Bertrand Russell, and I read a lot of other stuff, because in the Greenfield Public Library, the 900s of the Dewey Decimal System, I mean, one of the few people that still remembers it, the 900s are theology, and they're only about this long. I don't know if that's all on camera. They're only about this long. The one-armed guy who caught a fish this big. They're only about this long, and so I read a lot of them. And I started going into class, and to his credit, the pastor, who was a wonderful man, would let me talk to him about this stuff. And finally, after, I don't know, it's so long ago, but after months of this platonic questioning every night at youth group, the minister called my mom and dad and said, you know, I think maybe Penn should stop coming to youth group. He's no longer learning about the Bible from me. He is now converting everyone in the class to atheism. So I was asked to leave, very politely, very nicely, youth group. And then with the help of Martin Mull, Randy Newman, Frank Zappa, the idea that these three men were out of the closet atheists was so inspiring to me and so important to me.
I actually think it's a huge tactical mistake for our movement to criticize religion on the basis of the pathological extremes, because most of the people we want to persuade in the follies of their beliefs don't see them as agents of the monstrous excesses of zealotry. The part of religion that makes it open to criticism, and which really makes it incompatible with science, is not that it makes you evil, it's that it's wrong and it makes you stupid. And to further this argument, what I would say is that, you know, many of the religious apologists out there are not stupid people. They are often brilliant people working in the field of theology and philosophy, smart people everywhere. What they are, though, is the religious apologists, at least, are smart people who can build these amazingly intricate rationalizations for whatever weird practice they favor, whether it's ritual cannibalism, or praying to spirits, or treating women as chattel.